Welcome back to the 2021 YTexas Summit. My name is Eric Sudol. I'm the president and CEO of ProStar Energy Solutions, based in Frisco, Texas. We are here today to talk about the topic of energy efficiency, renewables, and obviously the great resource that Texas has in energy. I'm joined by two very distinguished folks on the topic. So let me introduce Paula Gold-Williams. She is the president and CEO of CPS Energy, based right there in San Antonio. CPS Energy is the largest municipally owned electric and gas utility in the United States, right here in Texas. So welcome, Paula.
Well, thank you so much for having me today.
Additionally, I want to introduce Dr. Michael Weber. He is a professor at the University of Texas at Austin, has had a distinguished career in many aspects related to energy, both here in the States and abroad, and his credibility speaks for itself. He has authored a mere 400 plus publications on the topic. So Dr. Weber, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. I look forward to the conversation.
Well, Texas, as we know, is the energy capital of the United States, and we are blessed with an abundance of energy. One may argue we've earned much of it because of our forward-thinking nature, going back to the days of Texas wildcatters, to hydraulic fracturing, our leading in wind and now solar, and obviously the list will go on and on. One thing about our summit that you've heard throughout is about growth. We continue to experience that. Corporate expansions like Tesla with their gigafactory, Samsung with its fabrication plants, and that list could honestly go on, and you've heard from many of them here today. What we do know with that growth will become, obviously, continued power and continued innovation in power and continued diversification in power. So with that, maybe as the backdrop, I'd like to start, and Paula, first turn it to you a little bit. Obviously, one of the largest providers in the space with a focus on renewables, but also obviously having dispatchable energy to provide the resilience to deliver for your customers. So when you think about the immense growth that's taking place, obviously the dynamic aspects happening in the business, renewables, plus the need for resiliency and dispatchable income, tell us, maybe share with us a little bit how you're looking at the world.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the intro. And you're right on point about, Texas in itself. I mean, we have the GNP of in many cases, many countries. And so, and we have such a rich history here. And in fact, to your point, our company, CPS Energy, we provide the electric and gas services here for San Antonio, but it's one big grid. And I know we're going to get into some conversations about the complexity of that. But one big grid, we provide about 7% of the energy on the electric side for the state, but we supply about 12% of what we call the reserve margin, which means we put a lot of extra energy back on the grid so that we can keep the energy grid stable. And to your point, we've been around for a long time. We've been around for 160 years. When we started here, there were only about 8,000 people in the city. And now we're the seventh largest city in the United States. And we do have baseload generation. And baseload means you can control that energy source. It will run 24/7, 365. It won't be impacted by the time of day or the weather. So that includes coal and natural gas. But it also includes nuclear, which is a clean, non-emitting energy source. That said, with that history that we've had, which was heavily baseload and fossil, that has created a foundation. But for over 20 years, we've been very interested in new technologies. And so we put out one of the biggest RFPs for solar power back in the 2011 timeframe, and we actually selected an international company, OCI, and they produced and put 400 megawatts of power on the grid. San Antonio is now number one in Texas for solar power and the origination of that. But we also have over 600 megawatts of solar. We have about 1,000 megawatts of wind. We have a huge energy efficiency and conservation program. We've been able to defer the investment in infrastructure. And you ultimately have to keep building the infrastructure, but being able to defer it makes it affordable for your customers. And so we have a huge program. We believe that we've got to keep investing in these new technologies. Now we're getting into microgrids, and we think that's a real important point in having backup power solutions. So for us, it's a big deal, and we think that Texas in particular, since we are resource rich, has a great opportunity to leverage natural resources, but also invest in new technologies that will be cleaner and more effective for our state.
That's helpful. I can't even imagine San Antonio with 8,000 people.
I know. We used to be the capital once, so there you go. Long time ago.
Well, helpful context and background, and obviously, your leadership in energy. You said a key comment there about kind of keep investing. Dr. Weber, in your book, The Power Trip, one of your kind of statements or thematics is the fact that energy's greatest value is it allows societies to reinvent themselves. So maybe dovetail a little bit off of what Paula just said and your book, maybe share kind of your perspective.
Yeah, it's great. So I think that there's a lot about energy that we don't always fully appreciate until it's not there. So energy can help us reinvent ourselves by lifting ourselves out of poverty or giving us the freedom of transportation to go travel someplace or work someplace else and have a global culture and this kind of thing. So there's a lot of great things about energy. But then when you have an event like Winter Storm Uri, where energy wasn't available the way we needed it for several days, it's a reminder to us how valuable it is. And so we can reinvent our energy system and reinvent what we use along the way with a lot of things that Paula said, right? The forms of energy we use to lift ourselves out of poverty over the last 150 years might not be the same forms we use over the next 150 years, because now we're trying to solve different problems. But I see that these challenges with Hurricane Ida in Louisiana or Winter Storm Uri in Texas in February, or prior years of Hurricane Harvey or droughts or whatever the challenges are, each time we have to build back a little bit, and we could do it differently than before. We have more technologies and options, and things that are cleaner, things that are more reliable, also advanced technologies that really prioritize energy efficiency or conservation or demand response is an important tool in our toolkit we tend to underutilize. So in addition to thinking about what forms of energy we're going to use to create advanced supply or more supply, we should think about smart controls and things that let us, in a more sophisticated way, manage the demand as well. And then we have two tools in our toolkit, and then we can really keep things in balance. One of the things about energy is it has to be balanced in real time, at least for the power sector. And we tend to think about ramping supply up and down to match when the demand is, but we could also ramp demand up and down to match when the supply is. So new tools, new technologies, new opportunities with the destruction that means we have to build back, as well as new sort of priorities, not just accessibility and affordability, but adding in priorities around reliability and sustainability. So I think it's pretty exciting for people in the energy world to think about what we're going to do next.
Yeah. Well, great answer. Our company, ProStar Energy Solutions, it kind of goes to your point about reinventing them. I think one thing we can all say about Texans is obviously a true entrepreneurial spirit. We're 100% owned by the Jones family, and I think all would say he's a quintessential entrepreneur, to say the least. And so literally our company was born, a little in the same vein, right, of maybe seeing opportunity where others saw obstacle. And so we were building the AT&T Stadium and now looking to condition 3 million square feet of air-conditioned space. Of course, it comes an electrical load and a unique load profile, to say the least. And now, just with deregulation, the ability to procure unique loads, that really was the foundation of the company. But Dr. Weber, as you alluded to, right, energy management has morphed into so much more, and we talk so much about the supply side, but obviously just the controls, advanced controls, and really we're working with companies all throughout the state and candidly nationwide on base load reductions, right, full BMS systems to get true control on things. So once again, I think reinventing themselves, looking at the whole spectrum, and the other thing too, the whole spectrum and the diversity of our energy sources. Well, I'll tell you, what a fascinating conversation. Honestly, I have a myriad more questions, but I also see the timestamp coming. I would just like to thank Paula, Gold Williams, President CEO of CPS Energy, obviously one of the staple providers within the state for your knowledge, your expertise, and opinions today. Thank you, Dr. Michael Weber, Professor, University of Texas at Austin, truly the author of hundreds of publications. Like I said, a very insightful conversation. I have a feeling it could go on for hours, and I also have a feeling this one thing about everything we discussed today, maybe close with how we started. At the end of the day, Texans always see opportunity where others see obstacle, and with our greatest resource being energy, I know we will continue to customize both on a building level, a macro level, and use all technologies to ensure our differentiating position to help the burgeoning growth that's been talked about in this entire summit. So thank you again for your participation, and have a great day.